The stars looked different here. Commander Tejo pressed his face against the cold glass of the observation deck and watched the red nebula swirl in the distance. It was beautiful, like a giant flower made of fire and light. But something felt wrong. The space around them was too quiet, too empty. "Commander, we're getting strange readings," called Sol Young from the pilot's seat. Her voice was tight with worry. "There should be more ships in this area. Trading routes, mining vessels, something. But I'm not seeing anything on the scanners." Tejo walked over to her station. The Explorer 7 was a small ship, built for long journeys into unknown space. Earth had sent them to find new worlds where humans could live. They had been traveling for 8 months, and this was the farthest any human had ever gone from home. "Maybe they're just avoiding this area," Tejo said, but he didn't sound sure. "Run a deeper scan. Check for any ships hiding behind asteroids or moons." When the engine room, Wu Jin was fixing a broken cooling system. It was young, maybe 25, but he knew machines better than anyone. The ship's computer kept making soft beeping sounds, and each beep made him more nervous. "Hi Jen, can you hand me that wrench?" he asked. The ship's doctor was helping him with the repairs. She was older than the rest of them, maybe 40, with kind eyes and steady hands. "You look worried," she said, passing him the tool. "What's wrong?" "The computer keeps picking up metal fragments," Wu Jin said. "Lots of them. They're scattered all over this sector.
Ow.
It's like someone took 100 ships and smashed them into tiny pieces." Could it be from old battles? Maybe this area saw a lot of fighting in the past. Maybe, Wu Jin said, but he shook his head. But some of these fragments are fresh, recent, and they're from different types of ships. It's different worlds, different technologies. Like something has been destroying ships from all over the galaxy. On the bridge, So Young's deeper scan was complete. What she saw made her blood run cold. "Commander, you need to see this." The screen showed a three-dimensional map of the surrounding space. Red dots marked the locations of debris fields. There were dozens of them, spread across several star systems. Each represented what was left of a destroyed ship or station. "How many ships is that?" Tejo asked quietly. "At least 200. Maybe more." So Young's voice was barely a whisper. "And Commander, some of these wrecks are huge. Capital ships, space stations, even what looks like a small moon that was hollowed out and turned into a fortress." Stared at the screen. In all his years in the Space Force, he had never seen destruction on this scale. "Any idea what could have done this?" "No, sir. But whatever it was, it's been busy. The oldest wrecks are about 300 years old. The newest ones are maybe a few weeks old." The ship's alarm suddenly started blaring. Red lights flashed on every console. Wu Jin's voice came over the intercom from the engine room. "Commander, we've got a problem. Something big just appeared on our sensors. Really big." Tejo ran to the main console. The screen showed a massive object moving toward them. It was at least 5 times the size of their ship, and it was shaped like nothing he had ever seen. It looked alive, like a giant predator from the deep ocean. But it was clearly made of metal and crystal. "Where did it come from?" he asked. "I don't know," So Young said, her hands flying over the controls. "It just appeared, like it was invisible. And then suddenly wasn't." The alien ship moved with impossible grace for something so large. It didn't fly like a normal ship. Instead, it seemed to swim through space, its surface rippling with strange lights. As it got closer, they could see that it was covered in what looked like scars and battle damage. But the damage was arranged in patterns, like decorations or trophies. "It's not responding to our communication signals," So Young reported. "I've tried every frequency we know." Hai Jin and Wu Jin had run to the bridge. They all watched in silence as the alien ship approached. It moved with the confidence of a predator that had never met anything it couldn't kill. Those markings on its hull, Hajin said quietly, "They're not just battle damage. They're symbols, trophies. Each one represents something the ship has destroyed." Tejo counted the markings. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Each one was different, representing a different species or civilization. His stomach turned as he realized what they were looking at. "This is the ship that destroyed all those others," he said. "This is what's been clearing out this entire sector of space." The alien ship suddenly stopped moving. It hung in space in front of them, massive and threatening. Then, without warning, beams of energy reached out from its surface and grabbed the Explorer 7. The human ship was pulled forward, helpless as a fly caught in a spider's web. "Engines are dead," Sa-Young reported. "Whatever those beams are, they're draining all our power." Taeho ordered, "Send a message back to Earth. Tell them what we found here, and tell them to stay away from this sector." Before Sa-Young could send the message, the alien ship's hull began to open. A docking tunnel extended toward them, connecting to their airlock. The metal of the tunnel was black and smooth, like the inside of a predator's mouth. "It wants us to come aboard," Woojin said, "or it's coming to us." They could hear something moving inside the tunnel, heavy footsteps that shook their ship with. Each step, whatever was coming toward them, was big, and it was coming fast. Taeho looked at his crew. Sa-Young was scared but trying to stay calm. Woojin was pale and shaking. Jin was checking her medical supplies, preparing for the worst. They were good people, and they trusted him to keep them safe. But he had no idea how to protect them from whatever was about to come through that airlock. The footsteps stopped just outside their door. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, with a sound like breaking thunder, the airlock exploded inward, standing. In the doorway was something from humanity's darkest nightmares. It was 12 feet tall, covered in crystalline armor that seemed to grow from its skin. It had 6 arms, each ending in claws that could tear through steel. Its eyes glowed with a cold intelligence that spoke of centuries of killing. But the most terrifying thing about it wasn't its size or its weapons. It was the way it looked at them, like a cat looking at mice. Like a predator that had found new prey to play with. The creature stepped into their ship, and Commander Taeho realized that their peaceful mission of exploration had just become a fight for survival against the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. Vorthok stepped into the human ship, his massive form filling the doorway. The crystal armor on his body caught the light and threw it back in strange patterns. His 6 arms moved with deadly grace, and his glowing eyes looked at each human like he was deciding which one to kill first. Commander Taeho felt his heart beating fast, but he forced himself to stay calm. In 15 years of space service, he had learned that panic got people killed. He stepped forward, placing himself between the alien predator and his crew. "I am Commander Taeho of the Earthship Explorer 7, he said in a steady voice. "These are my crew members, So-Young, Woojin, and Haijin. We are explorers from the planet Earth, and we come in peace." Vorthok stopped moving. In 300 years of hunting, no prey had ever introduced themselves to him. They usually screamed, begged, or tried to run.
Ow.
This strange behavior confused him. "You speak to me as if we are equals," Vorthok said, his voice like grinding stone. "I am Vorthok, the apex hunter. I have destroyed 1,000 ships and wiped out entire civilizations. You should be on your knees, begging for your lives." "We don't know your customs," Taeho replied. "On Earth, when we meet someone new, we introduce ourselves. It's called being polite." Vorthok's eyes narrowed. Was this human mocking him? But there was no fear in the man's voice, only genuine respect. This was something new. So Young, despite her terror, stepped forward. Her hands were shaking, but she held a small package. "Are you hungry?" she asked. "We have food if you want some. Not much, but you're welcome to share it." Vorthok stared at her. In all his years of hunting, no prey had ever offered him food. They had offered him treasure, weapons, even other lives to spare their own, but never food, never simple kindness. "You offer food to your killer?" he asked. "You haven't killed us yet," Sa-Young said. "And you look like you've been alone for a long time." Everyone gets hungry when they're alone. Woojin, the young engineer, overcame his fear enough to speak. "Your ship is amazing," he said, looking at Vorthok's armor. "Is that biomechanical technology? It's the way it moves with your body? It's like it's alive? Did you build it yourself?" Vorthok was thrown off balance again. This human was asking about his technology with genuine curiosity, not fear. "It is grown, not built," he said slowly. "Right. It is part of me. as I am part of it. That's incredible, Wujin said. The integration must have taken years to perfect. And those energy beams that captured our ship, are they powered by your life force, or do you have some kind of crystal power source? For the first time in centuries, Vorthok found himself wanting to explain his technology to someone. But he caught himself. These were not equals, they were prey. Hygiene, the doctor, had been watching Vorthok carefully. She noticed old scars on his arms, places where the crystal armor didn't quite fit right. You've been hurt, she said softly. Those old wounds, do they still cause you pain? Vorthok's massive form went very still. What did you say? I'm a doctor, Hyjin explained. I can see where you've been injured before. Some of those scars look old, but they're not healed properly. They must hurt sometimes. No one had asked about his pain in 300 years. No one had cared. About his wounds, since his own people had died? The question hit him like a physical blow. Why do you care? He asked, his voice quieter now. Because pain is pain, Hyjin said simply. It doesn't matter who you are or what you've done. No one should have to suffer alone. Vorthok felt something stir in his chest, an emotion he had buried long ago. These humans were treating him like a person, not a monster. It was confusing and painful and strange. Enough, he said, his voice growing hard again. I did not come here to talk. I came here to hunt. He raised one of his massive arms and easily crushed a steel support beam. The metal crumpled like paper in his grip. I am the greatest predator in the galaxy. I have hunted and killed beings far stronger than you. I have ended civilizations and turned worlds into graveyards.
Ow.
The humans stepped back, but they didn't run. They didn't scream. They watched him with sad eyes, like they understood something about him that he didn't want them to see. That must be lonely, Tejo said quietly. Being the strongest thing in the galaxy, never having anyone to talk to as an equal, never having anyone who understands you. Vorthok's hand stopped crushing the beam. What did you say? I said it. Must be lonely, Tejo repeated. We've seen the wreckage of hundreds of ships out there. That's hundreds of chances to talk to someone new, to learn about different worlds and cultures. But instead, you destroyed them all. Now you're alone in empty space, with no one to talk to but ghosts. Vorthok felt anger rising in his chest. How dare this tiny human speak to him about loneliness? How dare he act like he understood? You know nothing about me, Vorthok snarled. You are insects. You are prey. You exist only to be hunted. Maybe, Tejo said, but even insects can see when someone is in pain. Vorthok stepped back, confused by his own reactions. These humans were supposed to be easy prey. They were supposed to fear him, to beg for mercy before he killed them quickly. But instead, they were treating him with kindness and respect. They were seeing him as a person, not a monster. It was infuriating. It was painful. It was something he had forgotten he wanted. I will give you a chance to prove your worth, Vorthok said finally. There is a world below us, is harsh and dangerous, full of acid storms and crystal forests. I will hunt you there for 7 days. If you can survive and evade me for that long, I will give you a quick death instead of a slow one. What if we refuse? Saul Young asked. Then I kill you. Now, Vorthok replied, but this way, you have a chance to show me how your species faces death. It will be interesting to see how long you last. Tejo looked at his crew. They were scared, but they were also determined. They had no choice, but they would face whatever came with dignity. We accept, he said. But we have one condition, Vorthok laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Prey does not make conditions with predators. Not a condition then, Tejo said. A request. When you hunt us, don't just kill us. Talk to us. Learn about us. You said you've been alone for a long time. This might be your last chance to have a real conversation with someone. Vorthok stared at him. Even facing death, these humans were thinking about his loneliness. They were offering him companionship even as he prepared to hunt them. You are very strange creatures, he said finally. Very strange indeed. He gestured toward the airlock. Come. Let me show you the world where you will die. And perhaps, if you prove interesting enough, I will listen to your words before I end your lives. As the humans prepared to leave their ship, Vorthok found himself looking forward to the hunt, in a way he hadn't in decades. It's not because he was excited to kill, but because he was curious to learn more about these strange beings who had offered him food, praised his technology, and cared about his pain. For the first time in 300 years, Vorthok was going to hunt prey that might actually surprise him. The planet below looked like a nightmare made of crystal and fire. Keth Prime spun slowly in the red light of its dying star, covered in forests of sharp crystal trees that grew 1,000 feet tall. Purple acid storms swept across the surface, melting anything they touched. The air was thick with poisonous gases that glowed green in the darkness. Vorthok's ship carried the humans down to the surface in a small transport pod. Through the windows, they could see the twisted landscape waiting for them. Crystal formations jutted from the ground like broken teeth. Rivers of acid flowed between jagged rocks. In the distance, lightning danced between the crystal trees, creating a deadly light show. This world was once home to the Kethani people, Vorthok said as they descended. They were great builders, masters of crystal technology. I hunted them here 50 years ago. Their cities are ruins now, but their bones still litter the caves. Soyoung looked out at the hostile landscape. It's beautiful, she said quietly. Terrible, but beautiful. Vorthok glanced at her. Most species saw only death in this place. The human's ability to find beauty in such a harsh world was strange to him. The transport pod landed on a flat area of black rock. Vorthok opened the doors and the humans stepped out into the thin, poisonous air. Their breathing masks would keep them alive for maybe 2 days before the filters failed. You have 6 hours before I begin hunting, Vorthok said. Use that time to run, to hide, to prepare. After that, I will track you down and kill you. But remember your promise. When I find you, we will talk. Taeho looked around at the deadly landscape. Which direction should we go? It does not matter, Vorthok replied. This entire world is a trap. The acid storms will burn you. The crystal trees will cut you. The poisonous air will slowly kill you. And at the end, I will find you wherever you hide. Then we better get started, Taeho said. He looked at his crew. We split into 2 groups. Soyoung and Woojin head for those ruins to the east. Hajin and I will go north toward the mountains. We meet at the Crystal Lake in 3 days, if we're still alive. Good luck, Soyoung said, hugging her commander. Try not to die before we see each other again. Vorthok watched this display of human emotion with interest. Most species abandoned their weak when hunted. But these humans cared about each other, even facing death. The 2 groups split up and began their desperate journey across the hostile world. Vorthok returned to his ship to wait. 6 hours was a long time to give prey a head start, but he was confident in his abilities. He had never lost a hunt, and he would not lose this one. Taeho and Haijin made their way across the broken landscape toward the distant mountains. The ground was covered in sharp rocks that cut through their boots. Acid puddles bubbled and steamed, forcing them to take long detours. Every step was dangerous. The air is getting thinner, Hijin said, checking her breathing mask. This rate will only have enough oxygen for 36 hours. Then we better find shelter fast, Taeho replied. Look for caves or ruins, anything that might have clean air trapped inside. They walked. They began to notice strange things scattered across the landscape. Pieces of metal and bone, the remains of Vorthok's previous victims. There were weapons that had been melted by acid armor, that had been crushed by massive claws, and bones that had been arranged in decorative patterns. He's been doing this for a long time, Haijin said softly. Look at all these remains. Each one was someone's friend, someone's family. Meanwhile, Soyoung and Woojin were making their way toward the ruined city in the east. The crystal trees around them sang in the wind, creating beautiful but eerie music. The ruins of the Kethani civilization rose from the ground like broken glass sculptures. This place gives me the creeps, Woojin said, looking at the twisted spires and collapsed bridges. It's like a graveyard. It is a graveyard, Soyoung replied. Vorthok killed everyone who lived here. We're walking through their bones. They found the entrance to an underground tunnel system. The tunnels were made of smooth crystal that still held traces of the Kethane's advanced technology. Emergency lights flickered weakly in the darkness, powered by crystal batteries that had lasted 50 years. "This is incredible," Wujin said, examining the crystal technology. The Kethani were amazing engineers. "This whole tunnel system is still partially functional after all these years. And it might keep us alive," Saoyang said. "The air down here is cleaner, and the tunnels might hide us from Vorthok's sensors." 6 hours passed quickly. Up in his ship, Vorthok felt the familiar thrill of the hunt beginning. He activated his tracking systems and began scanning the planets, surface for signs of the humans. But something was different about this hunt. Usually, he could sense his prey's fear and panic from orbit. Their terror called to him like a beacon. But these humans felt different. They were afraid, yes, but they were also determined. They were working together, thinking, planning. Vorthok descended to the surface and began tracking the first group. Taiho and Haijin had left a clear trail across the rocks, but it was not the panicked flight he expected. They'd even taken time to examine some of the wreckage from his previous hunts. He found them sheltering in a cave system near the mountains. But when he approached, something unexpected happened. Instead of running in terror, Taiho stepped out of the cave and called to him. "Vorthok, is that you? We've been waiting for you." Vorthok stopped, confused. "Waiting for me? You said we would talk when you found us," Taiho said. "We found some interesting things while we were traveling. Wanted to ask you about them." Haijin emerged from the cave carrying a piece of twisted metal. "This armor piece, it's not from Earth technology. The metal composition is unlike anything we've seen." "What species did it belong to?" Vorthok stared at the armor fragment. It was from a Rigelian warrior he had killed 2 centuries ago. They were called the Flame Bearers of Rigel. They were proud fighters who never surrendered. What were they? Like Haijin asked, did they have families? Art? Music? "Why do you care about my dead enemies?" Vorthok asked, genuinely puzzled. "Because they were people," Taiho said. "Each one had a story, a life, dreams and fears just like us. But when you killed them, you ended all of that. Don't you ever wonder what you might have learned from them if you had talked instead of fought?" Vorthok felt an uncomfortable stirring in his chest. "I am a predator. I do not learn from prey. I consume them." "But you're learning from us right now," Haijin pointed out. "You're curious about us. You want to understand why we're different." Yes. Learning. Before Vorthok could respond, a massive acid storm began approaching their location. The sky turned purple, and the air filled with burning droplets that could melt flesh from bone. "The storm will kill you," Vorthok said. "Even I must take shelter." "From the acid rain? Then shelter with us," Taiho said. "The cave is big enough for all of us. We can wait out the storm together." Vorthok hesitated. He had never taken shelter with his prey before. But the storm was dangerous even for him. He was curious about these strange humans who offered him protection instead of begging for their lives. "Very well," he said. "But when the storm passes, the hunt continues." "Of course," Taiho agreed. "But until then, we can talk. I'll tell you about Earth, and you can tell us about your people. Fair trade." As the acid storm raged outside, the galaxy's most feared predator sat in a cave with the humans he was supposed to kill. And for the first time in 300 years, he began to remember what it felt like to have a conversation with someone who wasn't afraid of him. The hunt was continuing, but something fundamental was changing, something that would alter the course of both their lives forever. The acid storm raged outside the cave for hours. Purple lightning split the sky, and burning rain fell like liquid fire. Inside the crystal cave, Vorthok sat across from Taiho and Haijin, his massive form taking up half the space. The humans had given him the driest spot in the cave, even though they were his prey. "Tell me about your world," Vorthok said, surprising himself with the request. "This Earth place, what is it like?" Taiho smiled, pulling out a small device that projected images in the air. "It's blue and green, covered mostly in water. You have great oceans and tall mountains, deserts and forests, and billions of people, all different, but all human." The images showed cities full of lights, children playing in parks, families eating together, and vast spaces of natural beauty. Vorthok stared at the pictures with an expression the humans couldn't read. "Your people live together in peace?" he asked. "Not always," Teho admitted. "We fight sometimes. We have wars and arguments and disagreements, but we also help each other. When disasters happen, people from all over the world come to help. When someone is hurt or lost, strangers will risk their lives to save them." Vorthok was quiet for a long moment. "My people were not like that," he said finally. "We were always the strongest, always the best fighters. We conquered other worlds because we could. We never learned to live in peace." "What happened to them?" Hyjin asked gently. Vorthok's eyes grew distant. "Destroyed ourselves. We were so focused on being the greatest predators that we forgot how to be anything else. When other species finally united against us, we were alone. No allies, no friends, just enemies on every side." He looked at his massive clawed hands. "I am the last of the apex hunters because we never learned what you humans seem to know naturally, that strength means nothing without someone to share it with." The storm began to quiet outside. Vorthok knew he should continue the hunt now, but he found himself reluctant to leave this warm cave and these strange conversations. "I should kill you now," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "You could," Teho agreed. "But then you'd be alone again, and we'd be dead. Nobody wins." "The hunt must continue," Vorthok said, standing up. "It is what I am." "No," Hyjin said softly. "It's what you've chosen to be. But you could choose something different." Vorthok left the cave without another word, but her words followed him into the storm-cleared night. On the other side of the planet, Sa-Young and Wu-Jin had made an incredible discovery in the underground tunnels. The Catheni ruins weren't just ruins. They were a vast library of crystal technology that still held information about dozens of alien civilizations. "What? Look at this," Wu-Jin said, touching a crystal panel that lit up with alien writing. "What? It's like a history book of the galaxy." The Cathani recorded everything they learned about other species before Vorthok killed them. Sa-Young studied the glowing symbols. "Can you translate any of it?" "Some of it," Wu-Jin said, working with his portable computer. "This section talks about trade between different worlds. This one describes art and music from a place called the Silver Nebula, and this one..." His voice trailed off. "What is it?" "It's about Vorthok's people, the apex hunters. But it's from before they became predators. Listen to this. The apex hunters of the crystal worlds were known throughout the galaxy for their wisdom and their beautiful songs. Their cities were works of art that took centuries to grow. They were the first species to develop faster than light, travel, and they shared this gift freely with younger civilizations." Sa-Young stared at the crystal display. They were explorers and teachers, not predators. According to this, yes, something changed them. Something made them turn from helpers into hunters. Wu-Jin continued reading. "It says here that they discovered something in deep space, something that corrupted their entire civilization. Within 50 years, they went from being the galaxy's greatest teachers to its most feared predators. What did they find? The records are damaged, but it mentions something called the hunger from beyond. Whatever it was, it consumed their culture and turned them into killing machines." So-Young felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold cave air. If that's true, then Vorthok isn't just a monster. He's a victim too. He's the last survivor of a species that was destroyed by something terrible. Meanwhile, Vorthok was tracking them through the tunnel system. His enhanced senses could follow their trail easily, but something was wrong. He kept stopping, distracted by memories he had buried for centuries. Talking to the humans had awakened something in him. Memories of his homeworld before the hunger came. Memories of crystal cities that sang in harmony with the wind. Memories of his people working together to build beautiful things instead of destroying them. He remembered his mother teaching him to grow crystal gardens. He remembered his father showing him how to navigate between the stars, using songs instead of computers. He remembered having friends, having a family, having a purpose beyond killing. The memories hurt, They hurt more than any physical wound he had ever received. For 300 years, he had told himself that his people had always been predators, that destruction was their nature. But the human's kindness had cracked open the wall he had built around his past, and now the truth was bleeding through. His people had been good once. They had been teachers and explorers and artists. The hunger had taken all of that away, but before it consumed them, they had been something beautiful. When he finally found Sa Young and Wu Jin in the Crystal Library, he stood in the shadows and watched them reading about his people's true history. They were learning about the civilization the hunger had destroyed, the civilization he was the last survivor of. "We know you're there," So Young said without turning around. "We found records about your people, about who they really were." Vorthok stepped into the light, his eyes fixed on the glowing crystals. "What do the records say?" "That you weren't always predators," Wu Jin said gently. "That your people were teachers and explorers. That something called the hunger changed them." Vorthok's massive form shuddered. "The hunger," he whispered. "It came from the dark spaces between galaxies, fed on civilization itself, turning order into chaos, beauty into destruction. It infected my people first, because we were the strongest, the most influential. When we fell, we became its weapons against the rest of the galaxy. But you survived," Sa Young said. "You're still here." "I survived by becoming what the hunger wanted me to be," Vorthok said, his voice full of pain. "A perfect predator. A destroyer of worlds. I have spent 300 years being everything my people were not." Haijin and Taeho had found the tunnel system and joined them. Now all 4 humans stood in the Crystal Library, surrounded by the history of a lost civilization, talking to its last survivor. "It's not too late," Haijin said. "You can choose to be something different. You can choose to honor what your people really were instead of what the hunger made them become." "How?" Vorthok asked. "I have killed thousands. I've destroyed civilizations. I am a monster." "Monsters don't feel guilty about what they've done," Taeho said. "Monsters don't remember. Their people's songs or mourn for lost beauty. You're not a monster, Vorthok. You're a person who's been in pain for a very long time." Vorthok looked at the 4 humans standing before him. They should have been running in terror. They should have been begging for their lives. Instead, they were offering him something he had thought was lost forever: forgiveness, understanding, and hope. For the first time in 3 centuries, the galaxy's most feared predator began to cry. The Crystal Library fell silent except for the sound of Vorthok's tears hitting the stone floor. Each drop rang like a bell in the quiet space. The humans stood frozen, watching the galaxy's most feared predator break down in front of them. Vorthok's massive shoulders shook as 300 years of buried grief finally escaped. The tears were not like human tears. They glowed with a soft blue light, like liquid starlight. As they hit the crystal floor, the ancient Kethany technology responded, and the walls began to show new images.
Ew.
"The crystals are reacting to your tears," Wu Jin said in wonder. "They're showing us something." The walls filled with moving pictures of Vorthok's homeworld as it had been long ago. Beautiful crystal cities that grew like living trees. Apex hunters working together to build magnificent structures that reached toward the stars. Children learning to sing songs that could guide ships between galaxies. "My home," Vorthok whispered, staring at the images. Before the hunger came. The pictures showed a young Vorthok, much smaller than he was now, working in a crystal garden with other members of his species, or laughing together, their voices creating harmonies that made the crystals around them glow with rainbow colors. "You were happy," Haijin said softly. "You had friends, family." "I had everything," Vorthok said, "and I threw it all away. When the hunger infected our minds, I could have fought it. Some of my people tried to resist, but I was young and angry, and the hunger promised me power, and I chose to embrace it." He looked at his massive clawed hands. "I helped destroy my own world. I killed my own people when they tried to stop me. I am not just the last of the apex hunters. I am one of the reasons they are extinct." The humans exchanged glances. This was worse than they had imagined. Vorthok wasn't just a victim of corruption. He had been a willing participant in the destruction of his own civilization. That must be a terrible burden to carry, Teho said finally. Vorthok's head snapped up. You don't understand. I just told you I helped murder my own species. I am beyond forgiveness. I am beyond redemption. Are you? Sawyang asked. Because you're crying for them now. You're remembering who they really were. You're feeling guilt for what you did. It doesn't sound like someone who's beyond redemption. It sounds like someone who's been punishing himself for 300 years, Haijin added. Living alone. Fighting endless battles. Never allowing himself peace or happiness. You've been your own prisoner all this time. Vorthok stared at them in disbelief. How can you speak to me like this? How can you show me kindness when I have just confessed? To genocide? Because Teho said, stepping closer, on Earth we believe that everyone deserves a chance to change. Everyone deserves a chance to do better. Even someone who has done terrible things. Your people would not forgive me if they knew what I was. Maybe some wouldn't, Teho admitted. But many would. Because we understand that people can change. We understand that sometimes the worst monsters are just people who got lost and forgot how to find their way home. The crystal walls continued to show images of Vorthok's past, both the beautiful early years and the terrible time when the hunger consumed his world. The humans watched it all without judgment, their faces full of compassion rather than fear. Why are you doing this? Vorthok asked, his voice breaking. Why are you being kind to me? I came here to hunt you, to kill you for sport. You should hate me, because you need help, Haijin said simply. And because we can see who you really are under all that pain and anger. You're not the monster you pretend to be. You're just someone who's been alone and hurt for a very long time, Sawyang added with a small smile. You're not a very good predator anymore. You've had dozens of chances to kill us, and you keep choosing to talk instead. I think part of you wants to be something different. Vorthok looked around at the 4 humans surrounding him. They were so small compared to him, so fragile, he could kill them all in seconds. But instead of fear in their eyes, he saw only caring and hope. I don't know how to be anything else, he admitted. For 300 years, I have been a hunter, a killer. It's all I remember how to do. I then learned something new, Wujin said. These crystals still hold the memories of your people's real culture. You could study them, remember who the apex hunters were before the hunger. You could choose to honor their memory by becoming what they would have wanted you to be. And you wouldn't be alone, Teho added. If you wanted, you could come with us. You could help us explore new worlds, meet new species. You could use your strength to protect instead of destroy. Vorthok was quiet for a long time, staring at the images on the crystal walls. He saw his parents teaching him to grow crystal gardens, saw his sisters showing him how to sing navigation songs. He saw his friends working together to build beautiful things. Then he saw himself as he was now, massive, scarred, alone, carrying the weight of 3 centuries of killing. How could someone like him ever find peace? I have done terrible things, he said finally. I have killed innocent people. I have destroyed entire civilizations. How can I just walk away from that and pretend to be good? Can't, Haijin said honestly. The things you've done will always be part of you. But that doesn't mean you can't choose to do better things from now on. It doesn't mean you can't try to make up for the harm you've caused. On Earth, we have a saying, Teho said. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Can't change your past, Vorthok. But you can choose what to do with your future. Vorthok closed his eyes and listened. To the crystal walls singing with the memories of his people. Their songs were about hope, about building rather than destroying, about working together to make beautiful things. When he opened his eyes again, the humans saw something different. In them, the cold hunger that had driven him for 3 centuries was gone, replaced by something warmer. Something that looked almost like hope. Slowly, carefully, the galaxy's most feared predator lowered himself to his knees in front of the 4 small humans, who had shown him more kindness than he had experienced in 300 years. Teach me, he said simply. Teach me how to be something other than a monster. Teach me how to honor my people's memory.
Ow.
Teach me how to find peace. The humans looked at each other and smiled. Then, together, they reached out and placed their small hands on Vorthok's massive arms, accepting him not as a predator or a monster, but as a friend who needed help finding his way home. In that moment, in a crystal cave on a dead world, the most feared being in the galaxy took his first step toward redemption. 6 months after the events on Keth Prime, the galaxy was a very different place. News had spread quickly through the star systems. Vorthok, the Destroyer, the most feared predator in known space, had not only spared his human prey, but had become their protector and ally. The first reports were met with disbelief. Merchants thought it was a trick. Military leaders suspected a trap. Some species panicked, thinking Vorthok had somehow made the humans his slaves. But as time passed and more evidence emerged, the galaxy began to understand that something unprecedented had happened. Commander Tejo stood on the bridge of a new ship, much larger than the Explorer 7. The vessel was called the Harmony, and it was unlike anything ever built before. Human engineering had been combined with Vorthok's knowledge of ancient Apex, hunter technology, and the crystal wisdom of the Kethani people. Incoming transmission from the Galactic Council, Sa Young announced from her communications station. She was now the ship's chief communications officer, responsible for managing contact with dozens of different species. "Put them through," Tejo said. He was no longer just a ship commander. The Council had appointed him as Earth's first official ambassador to the galaxy. Though many species still found it hard to believe that humans had earned their place at the negotiating table by befriending rather than conquering, the main screen filled with the image of Ambassador Zeth, tall, thin creature with silver skin and 4 arms. The Zethari people had been one of Vorthok's targets 50 years ago, though they had managed to escape before he could hunt them. Ambassador Tejo, Zeth said, his voice carefully controlled. "The Council has received reports that Vorthok has been seen in the Outer Rim territories. Our people are frightened. They remember what he did to the colonies at Beta Station. Vorthok is helping evacuate refugees from the plasma storms in that sector," Tejo replied calmly. "He's been working with our medical teams to save lives, not take them." "How can we trust him?" Zeth demanded. "How can we trust a being who has murdered millions?" Before Tejo could answer, another voice spoke from behind him. "Because I am trying to earn that trust, one life at a time." Vorthok stepped into view of the screen. He was still massive and intimidating, but something fundamental had changed about him. Crystal armor he wore now was different, brighter, more beautiful, grown in patterns that resembled the artistic designs of his people's golden age, rather than the harsh battle scars of a predator ambassador. Stepped back from his screen, instinctively afraid. But Vorthok's voice was gentle when he spoke. "I know you have every reason to fear me," Vorthok said. "I destroyed your outer colonies. I killed 300 of your people. I cannot undo those actions, and I do not ask for your forgiveness. But I can promise you this: I will spend the rest of my life trying to protect the innocent instead of harming them." "Words are easy," Zeth said, though his voice was less hostile than before. "How do we know you won't return to your old ways?" "Because he's not alone anymore," Hyjin said, joining the conversation. She was now the head of the galaxy's first interspecies medical program, treating patients from dozens of different worlds. Isolation and pain made Vorthok into a predator. Community and purpose are making him into something better. Wujin looked up from his engineering station. He had been working with Vorthok to develop new defensive technologies that could protect merchant ships from space pirates and natural disasters. "Besides," he added, "you should see the refugee camp we just finished building in the Tau sector. Vorthok can move asteroids with his bare hands. He's faster at construction work than 100 engineering drones." Ambassador Zeth was quiet for a moment, considering their words. Finally, he spoke. "The Council will continue to monitor the situation, but we acknowledge that the reports show Vorthok has been helpful in recent months." After the transmission ended, Tejo walked to the observation deck where Vorthok often stood, looking out at the stars. The massive being was studying a small crystal that contained recordings of his people's ancient songs. "More skeptical politicians?" Vorthok asked, without turning around. "They'll come around," Tejo said. "Change takes time, especially when you're asking people to trust someone they feared for centuries." "Some days I wonder if I'm fooling myself," Vorthok said quietly. "I try to save lives now, but I still remember how easy it was to take them. I still remember the satisfaction I felt when I hunted. What if that part of me comes back? Then we'll help you fight it, Tejo said simply. That's what friends do. Vorthok turned to look at his human companion. In the months they had worked together, the word friend had become one of his favorites. He had forgotten that such relationships could exist. The rescue mission to the Epsilon colonies is ready to begin, he said. Solar flares have been hitting their planet for weeks. Without help, 20,000 people will die. Then let's go save them, Tejo said. As the Harmony changed course toward the Epsilon system, Vorthok reflected on how much his life had changed. 6 months ago, he had been the most feared being in the galaxy, living alone in the darkness between stars, finding meaning only in destruction and death. Now he was part of something larger. The humans had introduced him to dozens of species who had gradually learned to trust him. He'd worked with scientists to develop new technologies. He helped build homes for refugees. He protected trade routes from pirates. He was using his strength to create rather than destroy. The refugee camp they reached 3 days later was a temporary city built on an asteroid. Thousands of beings from a dozen different species lived there while their damaged worlds were repaired. When the Harmony arrived, children ran to the landing bay to greet them. Vorthok, Vorthok, they called in various languages. A small Rigelian child, one of the species his people had once hunted, climbed onto his massive arm and hugged him.
Ow.
Did you bring us more crystal gardens? The child asked. Vorthok had been teaching the refugee children how to grow the same crystal plants his own people had cultivated long ago. I brought seeds for a whole forest, Vorthok replied, his voice warm with affection. Would you like to help me plant them? Watching this scene, Hyjin smiled and made a note in her medical log. Vorthok's psychological healing was progressing better than she had hoped. He was learning to find joy in creation, in teaching, in being loved rather than feared. Saw Young coordinated the relief supplies while Wu Zhen worked with local engineers to improve the camp's power systems. But the most important work was being done by Vorthok himself, who spent hours with the refugees, listening to their stories, helping with construction, and slowly proving to the galaxy that even its greatest monster could choose to become its most dedicated protector. That evening, as the 4 humans and Vorthok sat together sharing a meal, Tejo raised his cup in a toast. 2 second chances, he said, to the family we found in the most unlikely place. 2 friendship, Soyoung added. To healing, said Hyjin. Wujing instead of breaking, Wujin contributed. Vorthok looked around at his friends. These small beings who had seen past his terrible reputation and helped him remember who he could be. He raised his own cup, filled with the sweet nectar that the Regalian refugees had shared with him.
Out.
To hope, he said simply. Outside their ship, the stars shone down on a galaxy that was slowly learning that even the deepest darkness could be transformed by light. At the center of that transformation was the most unlikely alliance in galactic history for humans who had chosen compassion over fear, and one former predator who had chosen love over loneliness. The galaxy would never forget the legend of Vorthok the Destroyer. But now, children would also grow up hearing the story of Vorthok the Protector, and they would learn that anyone, no matter how lost they seemed, could find their way home again. In the end, the strongest predator in the galaxy had not bowed to human strength or technology or weapons. He had bowed to something far more powerful, the simple human belief that everyone deserved a chance to be better than they were.